So we were reading in Book 2, Canto 6. We came to the end. We saw the kingdoms of the greater life and the goddess of the greater life. But although it's the greater life, King 𝒂𝒏𝒕𝒐 still found it unsatisfactory, dissatisfying, even bewildering, not making sense. So because of that unsatisfactoriness of even the greater life, he is going to have to go down the downward path to the very root of things. And before we go there, I want us to go back to Book 2, Canto 4. Page 135 at the break. We've been there before. We'll just have a little look again. This is in Canto 4, the kingdoms of the little life. And this canto tells us about the pitiful state of the great, glorious life angel when she's swallowed up by all the forces of matter. Her freedom and her greatness, she comes into a very pitiable condition. So that just before this break on page 135, we read that she is now in this world of matter. She's like a lost child, a foundling of the gods. A foundling is a child who's been abandoned and found, or maybe not yet found. This child is wandering here like a child soul left near the gates of hell. This child has been abandoned, and whoever has abandoned her hasn't made sure that she's in a place where she will easily find good parents to care for her. She's been left near the gates of hell. But because of the knowledge that is in her somehow, she's still looking for that wonderful paradise, which is her true home, which she has left in order to bring life into the earth, to the earth. So there she is, wandering and trying to find her way. So there, Sri Aurobindo tells us after the break, in this slow ascension, he must follow her pace, even from her faint and dim subconscious start. So only can earth's last salvation come. For so only could he know the obscure cause of all that holds us back and baffles God in the jail delivery of the imprisoned soul. 𝒂𝒏𝒕𝒐 has to follow the life goddess as she searches for her paradise. And he has to travel with her even from the very beginning, from this faint and dim subconscious start where life has begun to emerge from matter. He has to do that. That is the only way that he can help to bring about the salvation of the earth. Because only like that, only by following her from this dreadful beginning, he could find out what is that obscure, hidden cause of everything that holds us back, that prevents us from progressing rapidly and smoothly in our evolution. Everything, it says, that baffles God. It's hard to think that God can be baffled, puzzled, and prevented, no? But it seems like that when God tries to deliver our imprisoned souls from their prison, from their jail in the lower levels of consciousness and in unconscious matter, everything that he tries to do, there's some baffling, preventing. So 𝒔𝒏𝒕 has to go down into the depths. I'll just read a few lines more. Along swift paths of fall, through dangerous gates, he chanced into a grey obscurity, teeming with instincts from the mindless gulfs that pushed to wear a form and win a place. Life here was intimate with death and night, and ate death's food that she might breathe a while. So in order to rescue her, rescue life, 𝒔𝒏𝒕 has to follow these swift paths of fall. He has to go down and down and down, along swift paths of fall through dangerous gates. So we are going to follow him. We are going to go now to page 202, to Canto 7, which tells about the descent into night. And the poet starts by describing King 𝒔𝒏𝒕 himself. A mind absolved from life, made calm to know. A heart divorced from the blindness and the pang, the seal of tears, the bond of ignorance. He turned to find that wide world failure's cause. Away he looked from nature's visible face and sent his gaze into the viewless vast, the formidable unknown infinity, asleep behind the endless coil of things that carries the universe in its timeless breadths, and the ripples of its being are our lives. The worlds are built by its unconscious breath, and matter and mind are its figures or its powers. Our waking thought, the output of its dreams. The veil was rent that covers nature's depths, he saw the fount of the world's lasting pain and the mouth of the black pit of ignorance. The evil guarded at the roots of life raised up its head and looked into his eyes. On a dim bank where dies subjective space, from a stark ridge overlooking all that is, a tenebrous, awakened nescience, her wide blank eyes wondering at time and form, stared at the inventions of the living void and the abyss whence our beginnings rose. Behind appeared a grey carved mask of night, watching the birth of all created things. A hidden puissance, conscious of its force, a vague and lurking presence everywhere, a contrary doom that threatens all things made, a death figuring as the dark seed of life, seemed to engender and to slay the world. Then, from the somber mystery of the gulfs, and from the hollow bosom of the mask, something crept forth that seemed a shapeless thought, a fatal influence upon creatures stole, whose lethal touch pursued the immortal spirit. On life was laid the haunting finger of death, and overcast with error, grief, and pain the soul's native will for truth and joy and light. A deformation coiled that claimed to be the being's very turn, nature's true drive. A hostile and perverting mind at work in every corner ensconced of conscious life, corrupted truth with her own formulas. Interceptor of the listening of the soul, afflicting knowledge with the hue of doubt, it captured the oracles of the occult gods, effaced the signposts of life's pilgrimage, cancelled the firm rock edicts graved by time, and on the foundation of the cosmic law erected its bronze pylons of misrule. Will you start, Janaka?
The mind that sought from life made the Canto know that parts of 𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒏𝒕 from the blindness and the pain, the seal of tears, the bond of ignorance. He turned to find that white 𝒊𝒏𝒂𝒍𝒅 culture. Away he looked from nature's visible face, and sent his gaze into the viewless vast, the formidable unknown infinity, as lit behind the endless coil of things that carries the universe in this timeless breath, and the ripples of its spring are our lives.
Lives, our lives. So this is King Ashvapati. His mind is absolved. It's free from all the misunderstandings of life. It's been made calm to have true knowledge. That is his mind. His heart is divorced from the blindness and the pang, all the not knowing and the pain of life, the tears, the suffering, the bond of ignorance. He's completely separated from that, divorced from that. So in his clear mind, with his calm heart, Ashvapati turns to find, to look for the cause of that wide world failure which we've been reading about in the previous canto. Why is life not the joyful, happy, delightful process that it should be? What has gone wrong? He wants to find the cause of that, because he wants to know how to set it right. That is his great will, to make the life of our world into a divine life. So he has to see all these contradictions, opposites, everything that is unsatisfactory about life, so that he can hope to find a way to set things right. So the first thing is he turns away, he looks away from nature's visible face, from what we see, the appearances of nature and of life. Instead, he sends his gaze into the viewless vast, the vastness which can't be seen, the invisible vastness, the formidable, powerful, terrifying, unknown infinity, which is sleeping behind this endless coil of things, of forms and movements in the universe. That formidable, unknown infinity that is carrying our universe in its timeless breadths, in its vast spaces which are free of time. Our lives are just the little ripples of waves of energy coming from that formidable, unknown infinite, which is asleep behind the endless coil, the circling of everything that's happening in the known universe. Puna.
The worlds are built by its unconscious breath, and matter and mind are its figures or its powers. Our waking thoughts, the output of its dreams. The veil was rent that covers nature's depths. He saw the font of the world's lasting pain, and the mouth of the black pit of ignorance. The evil guarded at the roots of life raised up its head and looked down into his eyes.
Just looked into his eyes. It's like a great snake, a huge python. That evil guarded at the roots of life. It's something, a traditional part of the Norse mythology from the Scandinavian countries, that our world is the way it is because this whole world is like a wonderful tree, but at the roots of the tree there's this serpent chewing away at the roots so that the tree itself and its fruits are distorted, spoiled. The worlds, not only our material world, but all the subtle worlds also are built, constructed by the unconscious breath of that unknown infinity. And what we think of as matter, what we think of as mind, mental consciousness, he says, are figures, representations, or powers of that infinity. Our waking thoughts, what we are conscious of thinking, these are the output of its dreams. So when King 𝒂𝒏𝒕 turns to look away from nature's visible face, then something happens. Will you read, Tara?
The veil was rent that covers nature's depths. He saw the fount of the world's lasting pain, and the mouth of the black pit of ignorance. The evil guarded at the roots of life, raised up his head and looked into his eyes. On a dim bank where dies subjective space, from a stark bridge overlooking all that is, a 𝒂𝒐 awakened nescience, her wide blank eyes wandering at time and form, stared at the inventions of the living void and the abyss whence our beginnings rose.
Thank you. So there's a veil which covers up the depths of nature so that we don't see them. But 𝒂𝒏𝒕 is deliberately sending his power of vision through that veil. The veil itself gets torn. Rent means torn. The veil that covers nature's depths. So he's able to see the fount, the source from which flows all the world's pain, the world's lasting pain, the pain that goes on and can't be stopped. And he sees that it is the same thing, the mouth of the black pit of ignorance. That's where everything comes from, all the world's lasting pain. There's a power of evil which is even protected, kept, protected at the very roots of life. If we think of life as a tree, under the roots there's something kept safe there, this distorting power of evil. And it takes the form of a great serpent. And when 𝒂𝒏𝒕 looks at it, then that serpent raises its head and looks straight into his eyes. So then Sri Aurobindo describes this serpent a bit more. She's lying on a bank, a kind of borderline, a bank. That's a place, or it's the borderline, the frontier, he says, where dies subjective space. What we perceive as space is no more there. That bank is almost like a ridge, a bare mountain ridge, from which one can see everything, overlooking everything that exists. And this being, this creature, is in the form of a tenebrous, awakened nescience. She's made of shadows and, more than ignorance, nescience, not knowing. And yet she's awakened. There's some consciousness there. These eyes of hers, they're open wide, but they're blank. There doesn't seem to be any intelligence there. They're opening and looking at time and form, all the shapes of the universe, staring at the inventions of the living void, of this emptiness in which life is taking form, living forms. And she sees also that abyss, that deep, dark hole from which our beginnings arose, the beginnings of all living beings. So first he sees that force of evil, and then he sees something else. Dana.
Behind appeared the grey dark master of life, watching the birth of all created things. A hidden presence, conscious of its force, a vague and lurking presence everywhere, a contrary doom that threatens all things made. A death figures the dark seed of life, seemed to engender and to slay the world.
So behind this embodiment of the evil, he sees a mask. It's not a face, it's a disguise that has been put over a face. It's a mask of night, of darkness. It has eyes, and those eyes look out through the mask, watching the birth of all created things. 𝒂𝒏𝒕 becomes aware of a hidden puissance, a hidden power which is conscious of its force. It's also a presence, a vague, lurking presence, hidden as if it's waiting to leap out and ambush us. That presence that unpleasant, fear-invoking, lurking presence seems to be everywhere. It's embodying something like doom, a judgment that will destroy, a contrary doom that is opposing everything. It threatens all things made. It's a figure of death, but it presents itself as the seed from which all life has emerged. That figure, that presence, that mask seems to engender and to slay the world. It seems to give birth to everything and to destroy everything. It is the beginning and end of the whole universe. Karim, would you?
Then, from the somber mystery of the gulfs, from the hollow bosom of the mask, something crept forth that seemed a shapeless thought. The fatal influence on creatures stole, whose lethal touch pursued the inward spirit. On life was laid a haunting finger of death, and overcast with error, grief, and pain. The soul's native will for truth and joy and light. A deformation coiled that climbed to be, being's very turn, nature's true drive. A hostile and perverting mind at work. In every corner, ensconced with conscious life, corrupted truth with her own formulas. Interceptor of the listening of the soul, afflicting knowledge with the view of doubt, it captured the oracles of the awful thoughts, effaced the signposts of life's pilgrimage, cancelled the firm rock edicts raised by time. And on the foundations of the cosmic law, erected its bronze islands of mystery.
Thank you. So this fatal influence is, I suppose it's like a kind of gas, invisible gas, spreading its poison on all creatures. Its touch is deadly, lethal, fatal. And that touch is pursuing the immortal spirit. It can't kill it, but still it's following it everywhere that it goes. So in this way, this haunting finger of death is laid on all life, all living things. And the soul's native will for truth and joy and light, the very characteristics and spirit of the soul, get overcast like a dark cloud coming over them and hiding. It's the soul's native will, the essential will, which is the very nature of the soul, gets overcast with error, grief, and pain, instead of its true nature of truth and joy and light. And it's as if this twisting, this deformation of the very nature of the soul, it's coiling through the whole universe, and it seems to claim to be just the way things are supposed to be. The being's very turn, its right way of being, nature's true drive. This can only happen because in every corner there is fixed, settled, ensconced, in every corner of conscious life, there are representatives of a hostile and perverting mind, which is at work to spoil everything. That mind, that hostile and perverting mind, is corrupting even truth. The very formulas and ways in which truth expresses itself get corrupted, spoiled, damaged. And this mind, this hostile and perverting mind, intercepts the listening of the soul. It's like, if you're sending messages, or maybe through your computer, and somebody catches hold of them and changes them before passing them on, intercepting the messages and spoiling them. So intercepting the listening of the soul, the soul is listening for the truth, but those truth messages get twisted. Even the power of knowledge gets afflicted, gets damaged, has to suffer the color, the hue, a shadow of doubt. It's that perverting mind. It captures even the oracles of the gods. They are sending divine messages to us, but they get intercepted on the way. That mind effaced the signposts of life's pilgrimage. It's a terrible mischief that can be done, no? There the Lord has set signposts to show us the way to go, and this mind comes along and wipes off the signs, so we know longer which way to go. And it also cancelled the firm rock edicts graved by time. In ancient times, great rulers erected on the borders of their land the laws. They carved on these big stones the laws that ruled that area, often in different languages. So now it's wonderful for archaeologists if they can just decipher one of the languages, they will be able to read 3 or 4. No? Those are rock edicts erected by rulers on the borders of their land to tell how things have to be done in that area. No? But these are just cancelled out, crossed off. And on the very foundations of the cosmic law, the law of the universe itself, that mind is putting up its own edicts, its own signs, but they are made not of stone, but of bronze, very long-lasting metal, and what they are advertising and telling about is misrule. Everything distorted, gone wrong. They don't give good laws and good guidance, just the very opposite. Sorry? A pylon. Well, we have pylons for carrying the electricity cables.
Column. Column.
It's not just a column, it's a kind of structure, no? You know what I mean. That carry the high tension lines. They have these big metal structures, no? So these are made of bronze, and they're advertisements, just like the rock edicts. But instead of telling true things and giving good guidance, they are advertising misrule, disorder, and confusion. Thera, would you read?
By that old dangerous spell, so from the brilliant nature of the gods, the fallen angels and misleading sons became themselves the danger and the charm, a very sweetness, heaven-born 𝒔𝒏𝒕. Its power to perform divine things. The wind of sorrow breathed upon the world. All thought with falsehood was besieged. All earth stamped with defect or with frustrating sign. All high-attempt with failure or vain success. But none could know the reason of his fall. The grey mask whispered, and though no sound was heard, yet in the evening heart the sea was sown, that world lay full of suffering, death, and pain.
Terrible, no? Even light and love get changed by that spell, that enchantment, which is hiding danger, cloaked danger. Light and love turn away from the brilliant, shining nature of the gods. They become fallen angels who have turned into the opposite of themselves. Fallen angels and misleading sons. Sons are the light that should lead us. No? These are become misleading sons. Light and love themselves. These are the great lights for us, but they became themselves a danger and a charm and an enchantment. A perverse sweetness. There's something sweet and attractive about them, but it's actually poisonous. Heaven-born malefice. Malefice means evil doing, doing wickedness. And this wickedness seems to come from heaven itself. Heaven-born malefice. That power could deform, misshape, spoil even divinest things. So as a result, a wind of sorrow breathed upon the world. All thought was besieged with falsehood, under attack all the time from falsehood. I was reading a passage from Mother just yesterday. She says, you don't realize, all of you, how everything is touched with this falsehood. So, like that. All thought was besieged with falsehood. All act was stamped with defect. Either it's spoiled or it will be frustrated. It will come to nothing. All high attempts are doomed to failure. Or maybe they will succeed, but that success will be in vain, meaningless, useless. That's happening all the time, but nobody could know why. Why is it happening like this? And that everything, whenever we try to do good things, it doesn't work. It's because that grey mask whispered. Nobody hears any sound, and yet from that whisper in the ignorant heart, a seed is planted which will bear black fruit of suffering, death, bale, misfortune of all kinds. It's a very dark and terrible picture.
On line 56.
Yes. Yes.
How do you pronounce that?
Malefice. We can say benefice. That means it gives you some benefit. It does you good. Malefice. It does you harm. The fis is from the fiat, to do something, making something. So this makes harm.
May I ask, what does ensconced mean?
Sorry?
Ensconced?
Ensconced. Yes. What does it mean? It means that some being takes possession of a particular place. So Mother has spoken about this. She said she sees sometimes in temples or churches, which are supposed to be sacred places, there are really malicious beings have ensconced themselves there. And people pray and they send their prayers and their wishes to the good, but on the way they get caught by these hostile beings who are ensconced there. They've found a way to settle themselves there so they can't be easily removed. So you need a corner to get ensconced. You have to have a little nook or something that you can get into and hold on there. Once you're ensconced, then it's very difficult to get rid of you. King 𝒂𝒏𝒕𝒐 is looking for the power that will be able to turn our earthly life into the life divine. And so he has to do this exploration into the depths to find the root of everything that's distorted and perverted and false. So that's a terrible descent, terrible description. But in fact, at the end of Canto 8, he does discover the magic key of nature's change. And then he's projected up into the paradise of the life gods. So we will come to that after a few weeks. when we reach that point. A mind absolved from life, made calm to know, a heart divorced from the blindness and the pang, the seal of tears, the bond of ignorance. He turned to find that wide world failure's cause. Away he looked from nature's visible face, and sent his gaze into the viewless vast, the formidable unknown infinity, asleep behind the endless coil of things that carries the universe in its timeless breadths, and the ripples of its being are our lives. The worlds are built by its unconscious breath, and matter and mind are its figures or its powers. Our waking thoughts, the output of its dreams. The veil was rent that covers nature's depths. He saw the fount of the world's lasting pain, and the mouth of the black pit of ignorance. The evil guarded at the roots of life raised up its head and looked into his eyes. On a dim bank where dies subjective space, from a stark ridge overlooking all that is, a tenebrous, awakened nescience, her wide blank eyes wondering at time and form, stared at the inventions of the living void, and the abyss whence our beginnings rose. Behind appeared a grey carved mask of night, watching the birth of all created things. A hidden puissance, conscious of its force, a vague and lurking presence everywhere, a contrary doom that threatens all things made, a death figuring as the dark seed of life, seemed to engender and to slay the world. Then, from the sombre mystery of the gulfs, and from the hollow bosom of the mask, something crept forth that seemed a shape helpless thought. A fatal influence upon creatures stole, whose lethal touch pursued the immortal spirit. On life was laid the haunting finger of death, and overcast with error, grief and pain, the soul's native will for truth and joy and light. A deformation coiled that claimed to be the being's very turn, nature's true drive. A hostile and perverting mind at work in every corner ensconced of conscious life, corrupted truth with her own formulas. Interceptor of the listening of the soul, afflicting knowledge with the hue of doubt, it captured the oracles of the occult gods, effaced the signposts of life's pilgrimage, cancelled the firm rock edicts graved by time, and on the foundations of the cosmic law erected its bronze pylons of misrule. Even light and love, by that cloaked danger's spell, turned from the brilliant nature of the gods to fallen angels and misleading sons, became themselves a danger and a charm, a perverse sweetness, heaven-born malefice. Its power could deform divinest things. A wind of sorrow breathed upon the world. All thought with falsehood was besieged, all act stamped with defect, or with frustration's sign. All high attempt with failure or vain success. But none could know the reason of his fall. The grey mask whispered, and though no sound was heard, yet in the ignorant heart a seed was sown that bore black fruit of suffering, death and bale.